Then he looks around the corner and he sees who this guy is. He must have thought he was Mr. Grubb too. Right? He looked back at me and went, like skedaddle, right? I went through offices like a fullback. They haven't seen a child since birth.
Welcome, friends, fans, and children of all ages, to another episode of GalaxyCon Live, where we are bringing the convention experience directly to you. And today, we are going back to the Great Forest by way of the second star to the right, and along the way, we'll stop by London 1961 with 5 amazing guests. So without further ado, let's wish upon a star and bring them out. Our first guest is an actor and retired United States Marine whose credits include Tower of London and Son of Frankenstein. Today, he joins us to talk about his role as the voice of the young Prince of the Forest in 1942's Bambi. Please welcome back Donnie Dunagan.
Hello, folks. Welcome to this wonderful show.
Oh, Donnie, welcome back. It's great to see you again, sir.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Oh, absolutely. How have you been lately?
Better than I deserve. Let me share this with you. I think GalaxyCon ought to go and get some special license for helping people with their health today, their mental condition, with the virus making us bored and tired and dull. This show is not bored, tired, and dull. It's a vaccination for happy smiles.
I'm gonna send that to my boss and see if we can get you put on the payroll as our new spokesman. How's that?
Oh, I'll take it.
Donnie, welcome back. Absolute pleasure to see you as always. And once again, on behalf of myself and everyone here at GalaxyCon, thank you for your service.
What do you say?
Thank you for your service.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
Very much so.
25 years of very interesting service.
Indeed. Hopefully, when we go back to our physical shows again, I can hear some of those stories. But I'm sure they're not for a Disney audience, and we'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
Our next guest joins us to discuss his time as the voice of Bambi's best friend, Thumper. Please welcome Peter Behn.
Hi there.
Hello, Peter. Thank you for joining us today.
Absolutely. Well, this is my first time on one of these expos, and I'm happy to be here.
Oh, it is our pleasure to have you here. It is absolutely fantastic. And thank you so much. And again, Bambi is very, very dear to my niece's heart. So Donnie and Peter, I'll say both of you right now, thank you for giving them such wonderful smiles when they discovered the film several years ago.
Well, thank you for having us all here.
Oh, absolutely. And let's keep this rolling. Our next guest is an actor whose body of work includes The Return of the Fly, Master of the World, and Star Trek. Today, he joins us as the voice of the dutiful Sergeant Tibs in 1961's 101 Dalmatians. Please welcome David Frankham.
Hi there, everyone. I'm so thrilled about this. It really is a great privilege for me to be sharing screen time with Tinkerbell and Thumper and Peter Pan and Bambi. I can't believe it, but here I am with all of you. It's terrific.
David, thank you for joining us today. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Celebrated my 95th last month, and I have a promise from the Disney studio that if I make it to be 101 in 6 years' time, they'll have me back to the studio to host a screening of 101 Dalmatians. So I have to hang in there.
I will be the first in line for that, sir. And let me just say, you just real quick, you worked with 2 feature films with the great Vincent Price, who I greatly admire. Just what was that? What was that experience like working with him twice?
Wonderful. And his advice to me was, do what I do, David, do everything. And Vincent wasn't just a movie star. He was in television. He was in radio. He was doing commercials. Because I once asked him, Vincent, do you think I should stick to movies after we'd done 3 films together? And he looked me up and down as though I was a village idiot and said, you damn fool, do what I do. Do everything. And that's wonderful advice from this great man.
Oh, absolutely. And those are both great films. Thank you so much. And also real quick, I really enjoyed Outer Limits episode Nightmare. That is one of my personal favorites as well. It's very deep and very psychological for its time. And again, you had some great contemporaries. And that kid, Martin Sheen, whatever happened to him? I wonder.
Oh, yeah. We knew the first day of rehearsal, the others, 6 or 7 of us in that show, he was going somewhere. In 1963, we knew that the whole world would be hearing of Martin Sheen.
Indeed, we did. Well, David, once again, thank you for joining us today. An absolute pleasure.
Good.
And our next guest, he is an actor, writer, and director whose work in front and behind the camera include Maniac, Santa Girl, and The Good Old Boys. Today, he joins us as the modern voice of Peter Pan in 2002's Peter Pan 2, Return to Neverland, and several projects since then. Please welcome Blayne Weaver.
Hello.
Hello. How you doing today, boss?
I am doing great. This is so cool. This is my first convention of any kind, and I'm really excited to get to sit on this panel and hear these great stories. Such a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. It's your first convention? Wow. And this is coming from the guy who brought us Losing Lois Lane.
Yes, I did. As a matter of fact, that's a deep dive. But yes. I did. That was my first directorial.
No, bro. I remember when it first kind of came out, people were talking about it, and I came across it like it was a great fan satire film. It's one of the better ones, and you and I know there's been a lot of them. So absolutely, and
for those of you who don't know, I'm a director, and my first directing thing was I did a short film called Losing Lois Lane about Clark Kent getting dumped by Lois and not being able to motivate to save people. So it's a fun little comedy thing, and my first directorial debut. So thanks for checking it out.
No problem, boss. And yeah, like I said, you've got I was saying the Peter Pan is a small part of your whole milieu. You've got a bunch of stuff going on, and and then the Santa movie, of course, starring Barry, who is a great friend of ours here at GalaxyCon. So
the very handsome Barry Bostwick, is that who you're referring to?
Yes. Patty, are we going to talk about all the time?
I have to talk nice about him, or he's mean to me. So we'll say good things about Barry Bostwick.
I always say good things about him because I got nothing bad to say to him whatsoever. Blayne, thank you for joining us today, boss. It's a great pleasure.
All mine.
And finally, hats off for this next radiant lady. She is an actress and radio broadcaster whose animation work includes the Synchro Box animation classic series, Space Angel, and my favorite, Clutch Cargo. Today, she rejoins us as the live-action model of Tinkerbell in the original Peter Pan. Please welcome back Margaret Kerry.
Hello. It's so nice to be back. But talking about Vincent Price saying you should try everything. At the time that we were working, we didn't know who was going to win, whether it was the television, whether it was going to be the movies, so you did everything that you possibly could. But I'm still amazed, astounded that I'm actually here. I'm looking at all of these lovely faces of people that I've known and worked with, and I pushed a button and it worked. I don't ever think it's going to work, but it always does. And Patty, thank you for having us.
Oh, of course. It's been my absolute pleasure. And thank you all again for joining us here today. Some of you for the first time, some of you returning back. As always, we here at GalaxyCon are looking forward to the time when the world gets a little bit back to normal. And I think we see the light at the end of the tunnel now. We're not there yet, but we're getting there. And we're looking forward to the day when we can possibly host you back on our physical stages and get you all back in front of your fans. In the meantime, we're thrilled to have you here on the GalaxyCon virtual stage. Our team is going through the chat room right now, pulling out the questions for us. In the meantime, I would love to hear how some of the new people joining us, how their Disney careers began. And Peter, we will start with you because we've certainly talked to Donnie about how Bambi began for him. How did it begin for you at the ripe old age of 5, I believe?
Well, it started at 4 and went on to 5. It took a couple of years to do the recording. As I recall or was told, I think it was 8 recording sessions. But I got the part because my father was a screenwriter in Hollywood at the time, and he heard that Disney was doing this movie, and so I went over to audition, probably with Donnie at the time, but didn't have they felt that I did not have the voice for Bambi. I guess Donnie did. Anyway, so a couple of weeks later, the animators were watching or listening to the recordings of the various 30 kids who were auditioned, and one of the animators said, "Hey, that kid would be perfect for the rabbit," and that was it. There were no auditions for the rabbit. I was it. So that's how I got started.
Very nice, very nice. And by the way, your father wrote some pretty interesting films in his time, and he was in that transitional period too, from the silent to the talkies. He was right in that sort of sweet spot.
That's true. He wrote, I think, 4 or 5 silent films, and then he wrote the screenplay for Howard Hughes's Hell's Angels, which was at the time $25 million, which was the most expensive film that had ever been made at that time. And apparently, according to my father, at the end of the film, Howard offered him one of the planes that was left over from the movie. But my father had seen so many crashes during the actual filming of the movie.
Yeah.
No, I don't think I'm going to take you up on that. I became a flyer, a pilot. I even made my own airplane. And I wish he'd saved it, but that would have been a long time ago.
Gracious. Oh, that's fantastic. So, David, we move ahead a couple decades to 1960s and 101 Dalmatians.
1959, that's right. Well, it was a busy year of auditions, and this was just another one. And I said, well, go to the Disney studio. You're going to record the voice of a cat. Okay, did that, waited to hear if I got the part. When I was told I had it, I was told I'd been chosen by Walt Disney. So, of course, I thought, of course, now, during these recording sessions, I'll meet him. I'm going to meet Walt Disney. Well, Wooly Reitherman, who was one of the 9 old men, the original animators, was in charge of the storyboards for those recording sessions. And I said, well, will Mr. Disney be here today? And he said, you will never meet Walt Disney. He doesn't meet the voices. He just goes by the sound. And so that was initially a disappointment, except that during that year, during the recording sessions, for 101 Dalmatians, I was cast in a live-action Disney Western called 10 Who Dared, about the first 10 men who charted the Colorado River in the 19th century. So when we came back from a location in Moab in Utah, Disney was on the set every day. So that very first morning, I walked up to him, hand outstretched, and I said, it's an honor to meet you, Mr. Disney, to which he replied, all around here, everybody calls me Walt. If you're working at MGM, you don't say to Louis there, hi, Louis, you know. I was in awe. I couldn't help it. Every morning, I could not call him Walt for the 6 or 7 years he was on the set, but a wonderful man. And the thrill of a lifetime to meet him every morning.
Yeah. Oh, outstanding. Absolutely. So your character, Tibs, is really sort of interesting because in the middle of the movie, he sort of becomes the hero of the tale. He's the one that sneaks on in, finds the puppies, leads them out. He's really it's about the Dalmatians, but in the middle of the second act, I always say, it's Sergeant Tibs who's kind of the hero of the day in that.
That's how I felt too. I was so proud. Yeah.
So very much a wonderful performance again. So thank you so much for that. And Blayne, we jump ahead almost to the 21st century, so Disney decides, okay, let's try a Peter Pan sequel. How did this come about for you?
Well, it's kind of a random story because I went to my agent's office, you know, as you often do when you're not getting the auditions that you want. So I was basically hassling my agent, and she looked on her desk and said, "Here, go down to the voiceover thing. They're looking for Lost Boys or something." So I went there. They didn't know who I was. I didn't have a voiceover agent, and they were looking for a grown-up voice to do Cubby because in the original it was, you know, and so Cubby had kind of like a goofy kind of, hey, look at the. Yeah, and I felt really silly doing that, and I'm like, I feel kind of weird doing that, but I can do a kid. Have you cast Peter yet? If you haven't cast Peter, I can, you know. To me, he always sounded like Wally Cleaver, you know, from the Leave It to Beaver, and so I was just like, I can do that. So I did it, And then I went away, and I'm like, well, that's something. At least I had an audition. And about 6 weeks later, the agent from that side of the department calls me and says, do we represent you? Like, who are you? How did you come into? Because I was on the theatrical side, the voiceover side. They've been looking for me, but Disney responded to the audition. And so just randomly, if I have not gone in that day to hassle my agent, which all young actors should hassle their agents all the time. But I wouldn't have gotten that audition. And if I had auditioned for Cubby, I wouldn't have gotten Peter. So there was a couple of just random things that happened that led to, like, honestly, one of the best parts anybody could ever have.
Indeed. And it's so funny because, people always say, well, he's also in the Lion King sequel and a half. And like, he is like, yeah. The whole sequence, you go, what? Yeah. Now, did they bring you in to record that, or did they just reuse old takes?
That particular one, I believe they used stuff from the actual Return to Neverland. But the jobs are so cool, as I'm sure everybody here can attest to. They're so random, and they pop up, and it's like, okay, now it's a fireworks show. Now it's something for the parks or and it's so random where it pops up, like I went on a Disney cruise and I was having dinner and I'm like, that's me. Hey, that's me. And the waiter thought I was crazy, but I wasn't. It was me.
And you've done the character for video games, which is a very, very different animal from narrative cartoons. What was that experience like?
Very repetitive, incredibly repetitive. And they have so many, the video games now are so instinctual that they can tell what kind of shirt you're wearing. That was one of the things, was like an interaction. So I spent about a day saying, hey, nice shirt, nice hat, nice, going through all of the possible things you can do. It's just a long day, but I mean, come on. It's not really digging ditches, is it? It's it's great. Even when you're being repetitive and doing something that you're like, wow, how many times am I going to crow today? It's still an amazing opportunity to be there, and you can do it in your pajamas.
Very true. Very true. Excellent. All right. Thank you so much for sharing these wonderful stories. Our team let me know that we're good going to our audience questions. So let's go ahead and start this up. And our first one is going to come from Aaron, who wants to know, what is everybody's most magical Disney memory?
Oh dear, most magical. My most magical moment was when I entered Mark Davis's office. Had no idea who he was, and in his third floor office, all around the room were these huge pieces of paper, about as big as this. Yeah. And he had sketched this incredible character. It turned out to be Tinkerbell. It was just magical. Of course, we were chatting, and I was looking. And everything's telling me, since I started in the business at 4, you always listen to the director or whoever is asking a question. You don't, and I couldn't help. I mean, it was magical. Many, many, many years later, Andreas Deja and Johnson were putting together a salute to Mark Davis many years later. And I was supposed to be a portion of a clip that went into it. And I'm sitting there, and they brought some of these papers with the sketches on it and put them in my lap. Oh. I tell you, you talk about magical. It was yes, it was magical. Great word for it.
No, absolutely. And a very dear friend of mine was Mark Davis's apprentice and protege at Imagineering, and he worked with him until Mark. Right, and it was still, and even after he retired, he would still go over to his house on holidays and stuff, and he just said nothing but those glowing things about Mr. Davis, and yeah.
Well, he was the gentlest of souls. I mean, I called him Mr. Davis. That's how long ago it was. But everything about him, I talked to Wendy one time and Catherine, and said, "How did you feel? I mean, I'm out there in a bathing suit. That was my costume." Just a one-piece bathing suit, and I had a cover-up because you had cover-ups in those days. You didn't, and I said, "How do you feel? You're out." She said, "I always felt protected. He would not have anything on the set that I heard stories about him that he would send them out. He would leave it. He protected us from the very beginning, and that was important."
That's wonderful.
Yes.
Very nice. Donnie, you got one?
I have many magical memories about that wonderful Walt Disney film. Okay, not the least of which is my stealing from Peter Behn and Thumper that can't say something nice, don't say nothing at all. We could use a little dose of that everywhere, right? Would not be enjoying this had I not fired my manager. About a year and a half before Pearl Harbor, okay? I've been in 5 or 6 or 7 films with the co-star, building a little one kid with curly hair, okay? And Disney called my mother on the kitchen phone. I'll never forget, I was there. And we didn't know, I loved it. Disney does not mind me being this candid, okay? Ever. We didn't know anything about it, okay? I never had a chance to go to the movies. Just work, right? He called my mother, and my mother understood Mr. Disney, okay? And please come to the studio and let's talk about doing the facial model first before the voice for the deer. My mother was all excited about this. She called my manager. I did not like him much. I'm 5.5 years old. Been in 6 or 7 films. I'm kind of 5.5, little jerk going on 18 maybe, okay, up here. And this guy came. He's our manager, my manager. And he heard about, from my mom in the living room, I'm going to do something for Walt Disney. He said, oh, we don't want him in a cartoon. I'm getting ready to put him in a Western. Oh, we can't do this. It'll ruin everything. Very rude to my mother. That's not the first time he'd been rude to my mother. I'd heard a man before this fire somebody. Sounded pretty good to me. I said, you're fired. My mother said, okay. He said, you can't fire me. I can fire you. I hired you. You're fired. Oh, he got all upset and left. Laid rubber in the driveway and left, right? When Mr. Disney heard about that a week later, when we're in the brand new buildings there, I think it's in Burbank, California, Mr. Disney personally heard about this, and he asked me about it with my mom there and some other people, and he laughed. He must have known that guy. He was very happy that I fired that guy. That was my start with Bambi.
Well, I have just the opposite story, if I may, with Walt Disney. Because I'm working, I was started to work when I was 4, as I said, and I was taught that any head of the studio was God himself. And that if you ever saw him, you should curtsy. Yeah. And he could make no mistakes, and if he ever glanced at you, he could make you a star. I mean, that's what I was brought, and everybody else was brought up on this. So yeah. I'm working one day at the big sound stage, and in walks a group of men with Buddy Ebsen leading them, and there are directors or other people with them, and then walk over to a wall of the sound stage. And Buddy Ebsen is standing there, and they're figuring out registration. It's the beginning of animatronics, and this was called the Small Man, I think, that they were working on. I didn't know that. And when it broke up, Mr. Disney came over to talk to Mark Davis and Jerry Geronimi and the cameraman, and I was invited into the group. So I ran and got my cover up. As I say, I'm in a one-piece bathing suit. We didn't do that. So I came over and I was introduced to him, and I'm standing there tongue-tied. This is the head of the studio. Should I curtsy? I mean, I was 18 years old, so I could figure out I shouldn't do that. But I was absolutely tongue-tied. And the next time he came back, it was the same thing. And another time that he came back, and suddenly, I mean, it dawned on me it was Walt Disney. All I had was head of studio at that moment. And I had mentioned to, I guess, Mark Davis or someone, that I had gone to school with the Disney girls, Sharon and Diane. And evidently they had mentioned it to Walt Disney, because I'm standing there not knowing what to say. And he said, I understand that you went to school with my daughters. And I told him, yes, I went to a school for girls. He says, oh, I remember that school. They liked that one very much. I had nothing. I just stood there. And he stepped away, and he came back and said something. But I remember that he said, I think they must have liked you, or something nice like that. And I only saw him one more time after that. So mine was just the opposite. I was stunned.
Of how gracious Mr. Disney was. Okay?
And there is.
I've been in several movies, not 6 or 7 films, different, mostly in one studio. I've seen a lot of 1939, 1940 men double-breasted suits walking around like big shot executives. He was unlike that. He was all over helping things. I saw him several times. And giving an example of his graciousness with a little runt kid me, I had not seen a deer. I'm pestering my mom to death. What's a deer look like? They showed me one little drawing of a deer, you know. What's a real deer look like? Huh? Remember, we were out of the Depression, poor as dirt. Now we're not poor as dirt. Work. So finally, Mr. Disney had a couple of his drivers, great guys, saw him several times, take us in a big, long vehicle to a local zoo there near Burbank. It had to be very nearby. Nice zoo, small. And we walked in, and down in a pit was one deer. I'll never forget this. Okay, and he's standing there like this, just still had antlers. One of the men went to a little machine and cranked it or something, and gave me some corn. I threw the corn at the deer, got right in front of him, perfect throw, right? Here's the deer. That's all.
That was it.
It's a deer. He's boring. I don't want to be a deer. One of the drivers, a nice guy, must have told Mr. Disney that 2 or 3 days later, I'm walking down the hall, going where I'm supposed to go for a change, I guess. And here comes Mr. Disney with, I think, his brother. I was never introduced to his brother. Anyway, here come the two of them. And Mr. Disney had his coat off. I think his sleeves were up. He was a very busy, positive guy. And he put his hand up. He stopped me in the hallway. He said, Donnie, how you doing? Fine, sir. I understand you went to the zoo. Yes, sir. And you saw the deer. Yes, sir. Donnie, I promise you, our Bambi will not be boring. Yes, they tell my mom I'm going to get fired again.
Fortunately, you were not. So, Peter, what would you consider to be your most magical Disney memory?
Well, I'm not sure it's magical, but it's certainly memorable. Right after the audition, and obviously after Donnie went to the zoo, Walt Disney met with me and took me to a little zoo that they had created on the set. Walt had brought in a younger deer that they had gotten in Maine out there, so that the animators could actually see the anatomical layout of a deer, because it is a little different than a lot of other animals. And there was also a bunny, and they gave me this little bunny to hold in my hands, and that was my real understanding of what they were going to be having me represent in the automation. And that was very memorable for me at the time.
Certainly.
There was one other thing, and that was in the recording studio where we were doing the voice, and the director would read the lines, because I wasn't reading too fast when I was 4 and 5. So the director would read the line with the inflection that they wanted, and then I would say it back. And we do that a few times till it got the way they wanted, and then we go on to something else. And at one point, they wanted me to laugh. There were some laughing scenes in the movie. And I'm not sure exactly what the director did, but it was trying to make me laugh, which I guess succeeded. And so that's how those laughs were created. And the other thing I remember is that what they were recording on was not tape. They didn't have that in those days. They had wax discs that were about 14 or 16 inches in diameter. and the big needle coming down from the record. And I thought that was pretty cool because I kind of like mechanical things and always have through my life. But that was probably the first really cool mechanical thing I had seen. So it was a fun experience.
Oh, absolutely. Wax cylinders. Wow, that's amazing.
No, not cylinders. This was a disc.
Disc. Okay, all right. I was like, it could have been yeah.
Cylinders were a little before that.
Well, it could have been. It could have been different for the recording of that, but no, I'm glad you clarified that for me. Very good.
I think they called them transcriptions.
Yeah,
if I remember.
That sounds familiar. That sounds familiar. So David, what would you consider to be like your most magical or memorable Disney memory?
Well, actually, two, because from the age of 16 on, working in England, and then I became a staff member with the BBC, I'd always nagged at me, I want to be an actor. The great actor Alec Guinness told me I was too old at 29 to be an actor. When I hopped on the Queen Mary and went to Hollywood and thought, I'll give it a try. So for the first year, 1956, when I was 30, I did some live television, but I still wasn't in a Hollywood movie. So in 1957, I got the word from my agent, you're going to be in a Disney movie called Johnny Tremaine. So I reported for work, got the script. I was a little disappointed to see that I didn't have much to say. I had 2 words I had to say after them. That was all I had. But I was in my revolutionary uniform on location. Robert Stevenson was directing, and the great moment came. I was behind a tree, and my direction was stick your head out from behind the tree and say after them. And I thought, okay. So action, roll 'em, action. So that rhyme came after them, and I was a Hollywood actor. God, I went home on the bus that night, grasping my Screen Actors Guild card. That was a magic moment for me. I had made it. Only 2 words, mind you, but I made it. And of course, the other magic moment I already told you about, 3 years later, by then I was the name above the title in this movie called 10 Who Dared. But the magic moment, of course, was meeting Walt Disney every morning on the set. Yeah. So 2 magic moments, 2 words the first time, and a daily meeting 3 years later.
That's I am glad to hear that you ignored the naysayers and went for it. I myself didn't get my equity card till I was 38, so that was.
I was 31. Yeah.
I always tell everybody it's never too late to try and get in this racket.
That's right. You're right.
Absolutely. So, Blayne, how did what's your favorite Disney memory or magical besides hearing yourself on the ship?
It's tough to follow these stories with actual Walt Disney and Obi-Wan Kenobi in them. I mean, like, how do you?
Yeah, I know.
But I think it takes a couple of years to record these things, and the job goes on. And like for me, it just started. I stopped believing that it ever was going to come out. Like I didn't want to get too excited about it. I was convinced they were going to replace me with Michael J. Fox or something at the very last moment, somebody way more famous than me that deserved it and blah, blah, blah. And so the most magical moment to me was we had this beautiful premiere at the El Capitan Theater and showed up on the red carpet, and there was Tinkerbell on the red carpet. And I got to meet Margaret. Like we had this picture together. I'm like, this is real. This is real. This is actually Tinkerbell. And now I'm Peter Behn. And then to see it up on the big screen and be like, it's not just a job, being a Disney character is so much more, as all these people can attest to. Like it just feels so big, and getting there and taking a picture with the actual Tinkerbell, that was the most magical thing of the whole job. So thank you for that.
Happy to do it. It's just, a lot of that film was made in Australia. Return to Neverland?
I believe a lot of the animation was over
there. A lot of the animation was done. I thought they just did a beautiful job on it. And I went, what? No. All animation is done here. Well, I found out differently because if I may segue into something that you may not know about me is I was invited by Mark Davis to be the model for the red-headed mermaid in the lagoon sequence and have lines in it. Because
Yes.
Tinkerbell never did lines.
Mm-hmm.
So I said I'd be delighted. And I showed up that day at the recording studio, the one that you're talking about, the recording stage. And I'm standing there with June Foray, who was the dark-haired mermaid, Connie Hilton, the blonde, and I was the redhead. And we went in and we did our lines, and I said things like, we just wanted to kill her, or the other one is, oh, Peter, we're so happy to see you, like that. And of course, I had done radio with June, and she was shorter than I. June Foray being the greatest voiceover actress that ever was. And for those of you who don't know who June Foray is, I suggest you take a look. It will give you a wonderful history story. So June, we're all standing out afterwards, and we looked at each other, and this is important because we looked at each other and we said, why are we fighting to get our picture our faces in the front of the camera? Why are we doing voiceover? And of course, we've done radio and so on, but we never thought of it as a career. And we stood there that day, and the three of us said, that's what we're going to do. And if you'll wait just one moment.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I ended up doing 237 episodes of Clutch Cargo and Spinner, and they used my lips during that time. And I also got to do work with the Three Stooges. We did 139 episodes. So I went into voiceover, actually, all because Disney gave me the next step up. And I thought, well, I've got to let them know, because Tinkerbell in that movie did not talk.
No. No, but you certainly did as well. I believe your Red-Headed Mermaid character also did the line, did you miss me, Peter?
No,
that was you. That was not you. Okay.
We're so happy to see you. They liked that I did a list. And the other one, we just wanted to kill her. No, that's not it. We just wanted to kill her.
That's a stark detail that anyone who sees that movie for the first time gets a little taken aback by.
Well, it was just, it makes me join with you gentlemen closer, because you did so many voiceovers, and I did too. I did certain items that I wanted to let you know I'm part of your industry.
And this is going to be from Dante. Oh, what is your favorite classic Disney song?
Oh, man.
Here.
Drip, drip, drop, little April shower, la, 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 la. From Bambi, I love that song.
That's a good one. That's a very good one.
And I think my favorite one would be A Spoonful of Sugar.
Oh.
I just love it. It's so happy about something that you have to take as medicine. And of course, that's my favorite movie, believe it or not. Peter Pan is my second favorite movie. Mary Poppins is my very first. I'm a dancer from the word go. I'm a soloist, and I was in many, many movies dancing on any kind of movie and so on and so forth. So the chimney sweep dance at the end, I have never seen anything to top it. It is just, I sit there mesmerized. And then, of course, I love it. What is the song that the little boys sing as they're dancing? They're marching in Peter Pan.
We're following the leader. The leader.
I can't get it. Sometimes I can't get it out of my head.
We're off to fight the people. Indeed. So, Donnie, you're about to say something?
I've seen children in orphanages, okay, and in children's hospitals that get a chance to see Bambi on screen set up in the aisle, okay, facially respond to the opening song, which we should hear more of. That love is a song that never ends, etc., etc. Wonderful song, okay?
Yes.
We should hear more of that everywhere. Disney, by the way, still has my water gun. Okay. There's a second. I almost got fired there. Okay, I think my mom's always worried about that. Frankenstein to get me a great water gun, 1939 Christmas, and I carried it clandestinely all that time, a couple of years. Okay, kids don't do this. Let your moms know, but I hid from my mom. Okay, that's the truth. And I'm in Disney. I got the water gun in my little bag. The Disney people are wonderful. And we're the very only kids they ever saw in their life here, I think. They used to use adults for the information. Now they're using children. Peter Behn and me and all the other wonderful people. And I'm walking down the hallway, and the only guy in Disney that was a grouch, he was a certified woman, okay, was coming down the hallway, and I'm going somewhere I'm supposed to go, I hope. And he said, "Move over, kid." That kind of guy, right? Yeah. He dropped his papers. He had a lot of papers, and I guess he thought I bent him or something. And I went around the corner of the intersection of the hallway, got my water gun on, let him have it back here. Right? No, it's leaking. Sunshine. It's leaking. People came out of the offices. Remember typewriters? They sound like machine guns, right? He said, right? The women came out of the office. He's standing there picking up his papers, grouchy. Mr. Grump, this guy, right? I thought, oh boy, I got him. I turned around to get out of there, right? Here's a man here's a tree in a three-piece suit. You know, I think it's Walt's brother, but I'm not sure. He looked at me like, remember how Mother Superior used to give you these kind of finger deals, you know? Mm-hmm. Give me one of those deals. I don't boy. And all the Westerns, the sheriffs talk about the smoking gun. I had the dripping gun. I mean, I can't hide this thing. You know?
Yeah.
Hell, then he looks around the corner and he sees who this guy is. And he must have thought he is Mr. Grump too. Right? He looked back at me and went, like skedaddle, right? I went through offices like a fullback. They haven't seen a child since birth. I got back to my mom. I hid my gun. Oh boy. My mom had to get up and go do something. Perfect timing. Here comes security. Not like the day with all the armaments and stuff on. Nice guy in that suit. We knew he was security. He says, "Donnie, I'd like to have that water gun." Frankenstein gave that to me, right? I think he uses it now. Frankenstein gave me the gun. You can't have it. It's your gun, Donnie. What a gun. 18 years ago or so, when they discovered we were alive, they invited us out to Burbank, a wonderful time, and just a great couple of days. And one of our hosts introduced us, standing up to the board of directors sitting in a big lunch table, you know, very nice guys. One of them gave a perfect straight line. "Donnie, is there anything we can do for you?" I said, "Yes, thank you. I want my gun back." You should have seen the reaction. Later I heard they sent somebody down to the archives trying to find that thing. They still haven't found it.
Oh, fantastic. So, Blayne, got a favorite Disney song?
I'm a supercalifragilistic type of guy. I did sing in Return to Neverland, though it's not good for anybody. They decided that Peter probably isn't that great a singer, so I was the perfect guy for it. But as an appreciator, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
There you go. There you go, indeed. So, and Peter, got a favorite Disney song?
Well, there are a few specific songs in the movie, but I think what deserves more credit is the entire score of the movie itself. It helps set the theme for the movie, as does the background. And I think it's when you go to a movie, there's often or a TV thing, there's the background music. You don't focus on it, but it sets subliminally, it sets the scene or the emotion of the movie. And I think that the score for the whole movie really, really does that well. And the other thing in the same manner is the background images or just sort of out of focus background in the whole movie that people, again, unless you are told, take a look at it, which I've done to a few people. It's remarkable. And both of those aspects of the movie are what give it the emotional feeling. That's sort of what I'm at.
And speaking of remarkable art, before we close out, you have some artwork you showed us earlier. Would you care to show our audience?
Sure, I'd be happy to. The first one, if we can see it properly here, if I can get it centered.
It's good.
This is a pencil sketch, a sort of a study sketch that was done for Thumper, and I've always had it and cherished it. I think it's very cool.
It's a beautiful piece.
This one, Bill Justice did. We were out in Hollywood for one of the anniversary presentations when they brought out a new remastered version of Bambi. And we were having dinner in the Brown Derby, and Bill Justice was with us, and he grabbed a napkin and sketched this out for me right at the time. It's physically on a piece of cloth, on the napkin itself that I had, which is. And then there's one more really quick that Andre Deja did for me. If I can get it in here.
There you go. Yeah.
Which I was very proud to have him say or write for me. And this is the original. So those are what I've got.
That is fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And Dante, thank you for that question. For me, my favorite Disney song, classic song, is the theme song to Dr. Sin, alias the Scarecrow, because I'm a huge Patrick McGowan fan. Gentlemen and lady, this has been an absolute delight. Thank you for joining us all on the GalaxyCon virtual stage. It's been my pleasure to host you all. Any final words for our audience before we go?
Pixie dust.
Thank you for listening to our stories. Yes.
Absolutely.
The pleasure was absolutely all ours. Thank you all so much for joining us again. Thank you to our audience for joining us, and thank you for your great questions. Hope to see you all again soon. Until then, bye-bye, everyone. Take care, and please keep washing those hands.